On this Sunday night, the U.S. hits Iran. The American strike on Iranian nuclear facilities puts the world on edge, with Tehran now warning of everlasting consequences. What happens next, and the consequences for the regime and the region. Plus, reason for hope.
People of Iran, they've been fighting for 45 years to get their freedom.
Why some Canadian Iranians believe the regime's days are finally numbered. And dangerous heat, the scorching temperatures cooking up concerns in central Canada.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The world is bracing for Iran's response, one day after the U.S. launched a series of bombings targeting 3 of Iran's nuclear sites. Take a look at these before and after satellite images revealing the damage to the entrance of the critical Fordow nuclear site. That shows the surface, of course, but that facility is buried within the mountain, out of range for the Israeli military. So the Pentagon deployed these specialized warplanes armed with bunker buster bombs capable of hitting targets deep underground. President Trump says the strikes completely obliterated the regime's enrichment facilities. Iran denies that, and neither side has provided evidence. Experts say it could take weeks to determine the extent of the damage. Within hours, Iran hit back, firing a barrage of missiles on Israel. Tehran has so far not attacked any U.S. targets, but the regime says the American strikes crossed a red line, and it declared all American assets and soldiers in the region to be, quote, legitimate targets. Tonight, President Trump, who has said he is not seeking regime change, posted this statement asking if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? This marks the first time the U.S. has ever directly attacked the Islamic Republic, and it's fueling fears the U.S. could be drawn into a wider war. Candice Cole begins our coverage tonight from Washington.
There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran.
Just days after President Trump said he would give Iran up to 2 weeks to negotiate over its nuclear program before deciding whether to involve the U.S. in Israel's conflict with Iran, the U.S. carried out Operation Midnight Hammer, a surprise attack on Iranian nuclear facilities without congressional approval.
Last night, on President Trump's orders, U.S. Central Command conducted a precision strike in the middle of the night against 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, in order to destroy or severely degrade Iran's nuclear program.
According to Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Dan Kane, fighter pilots flew 18 hours to drop 14 bunker buster bombs on nuclear targets.
This was a complex and high-risk mission carried out with exceptional skill and discipline by our joint force. We are currently unaware of any shots fired at the U.S. strike package on the way in.
The U.S. strikes come more than a week after Israel launched airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, marking a significant escalation in a war many fear will bring even more volatility to the region. As damage assessments are underway, the UN's nuclear watchdog says there are no signs of radioactive contamination. In response, Tehran has vowed to defend itself at all costs.
The warmongering and lawless administration in Washington is solely and fully responsible for the dangerous consequences and far-reaching implications of its act of aggression.
Following the strikes, President Trump warned Iran against retaliation in hopes of restoring peace. How that happens remains in question.
When Trump kind of tells the Iranians to return to the table, he's doing so with the expectation that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is basically going to just wave the white flag.
Iran's foreign minister says he will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday to discuss how to move forward. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security is warning of possible cyber attacks and lone wolf attacks in the U.S. following the strikes on Iran. Jeff?
Candice Cole in Washington. Thanks, Candice. Israeli officials say Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu knew of those planned U.S. strikes 24 hours beforehand, and Netanyahu was quick to praise President Trump for what he called a bold decision that will change history.
President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. God bless America, God bless Israel, and may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
The entire region is now on edge, awaiting Iran's next moves. Our Mike Armstrong is in the Middle East and joins me tonight from Jerusalem. Mike.
Well, Jeff, the news the U.S. had hit Iran came during the night here in Israel, so most people were asleep. The first response from Iran, on the other hand, came as people were waking up. According to Israeli officials, there were 2 waves of missiles. The first just after 7 a.m., the second minutes later. Air defenses intercepted and destroyed most of the estimated 35 projectiles. 3 made it through. There were impacts in Haifa, Tel Aviv, and just south of Tel Aviv. The Israeli Health Ministry reports 86 people were taken to hospital. No one was seriously injured. Now, the government is asking journalists not to identify specific locations. But at this site, there was heavy damage to homes inside a radius of about 300 meters from where the missile struck. Dozens of homes will have to be torn down. Everywhere we've been over the last few days, anywhere a missile has landed, we've been surprised that more people weren't injured or killed. And that applies to this home. There were 3 people in a safe room in the basement when the missile struck here this morning.
There was a big bomb, but we didn't feel shaking.
These rooms are very impressive.
Yeah, it's very solid.
The Israeli government is retightening rules across the country. Public gatherings are banned and only essential businesses are allowed to open. But a new banner in Tel Aviv does represent much of the public sentiment here. Many welcome U.S. involvement.
Trump is keeping his promise to keep Israel safe.
Go for it, Trump. Thanks for helping us. Thanks for being next to us.
Now, there are banners on the streets of the Iranian capital as well. The U.S. attack is being called a grave violation of international law, one the government has to stand up to. This man says the U.S. made a futile move and has endangered its interests in the region. Well, the Iranian president joined a rally in the streets of Tehran Sunday. There were chants of death to the USA, but so far there's been no retaliation against U.S. troops in the region. That's been the biggest threat in recent days from the Iranian government, and something everyone is watching. Jeff?
All right, Mike Armstrong in Jerusalem. Thanks, Mike. The Iranian regime has promised to retaliate against those U.S. strikes and is reportedly considering a wide range of possible targets. Those include U.S. military bases and closing the Strait of Hormuz. That's a critical choke point for oil supplies that could send global gas prices soaring. Nathaniel Dove reports now on the Iranian response.
Beyond the Middle East, a chorus of support for the U.S. strike on Iran's nuclear sites.
God bless America. Merci, Trump.
And concern for what happens next.
The U.S. has now taken action to alleviate that threat. It is important that we now de-escalate the situation.
The question looming over the region now is, how will Iran respond? Experts say the regime's reaction depends on what it believes the U.S. will do.
J.D. Vance and President Trump are saying and tweeting regime change isn't on the agenda. But I don't think the Iranians are convinced.
Iran had promised to attack the U.S. if the Americans intervened. The U.S. has military bases in more than half a dozen countries in the region, like Qatar and Kuwait, with tens of thousands of American troops. On Sunday, Iran's parliament voted to close the Strait of Hormuz, a vital shipping lane for more than 20% of the world's oil. If that happens, it will likely drive up global prices.
That would perhaps get China to get more involved to try and broker some sort of peace.
A former Canadian diplomat to Iran points out the country still has missiles and a proxy, the Houthis in Yemen, who can help make shipping in the strait painful. But Donald Trump warned the U.S. could keep attacking Iran if it strikes back.
Focusing on Israel seems to be what they're maybe hoping to do because they're banking that Trump doesn't want to get into this war.
Iran's long-term strategy is another issue. The regime has already vowed to rebuild its nuclear sites, and Horak suggests is likely considering how to use them.
There can be an argument that's, I'm sure, being made that none of this would be happening if we actually had a nuclear weapon.
Dennis Horak says what the regime does next likely depends on how damaged their nuclear sites are.
They are pragmatic, they are rational, but they're also prone to miscalculation.
Horak says the regime is likely weighing what it can do, but knows doing nothing could invite more attacks. Nathaniel Dove, Global News, Toronto.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney reacted to the U.S. strikes, saying Canada has been consistently clear Iran can never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. But the PM also pushed for restraint, saying the resolution of the Iranian crisis should lead to a broader de-escalation of hostilities in the Middle East, including a ceasefire in Gaza. Global News spoke exclusively to Israel's deputy foreign minister, who denounced Prime Minister Carney's calls for de-escalation.
I think that the calling for de-escalation, for diplomatic solution, they've tried that. Matter of fact, they've tried that for more than 15 years now, and Iran just received them and was on the verge of breaking into a nuclear weapon.
As the conflict in the Middle East intensifies, Prime Minister Carney embarked on an overseas trip aimed at bolstering Canada's own defense capabilities and improving relations with our European allies. Our Mackenzie Gray is traveling with the Prime Minister, and he joins me now from Brussels. Mackenzie.
The Prime Minister's arrived here in Brussels, Jeff, but it's the attack on Iran that's dominating the conversation. Mr. Carney, do you agree with the Americans' decision to bomb Iran, sir? Mark Carney didn't stop and answer reporters' questions before heading to Belgium, instead issuing a statement shortly after takeoff and leaving further comment to the Foreign Affairs Minister.
Iran has been developing its nuclear capacity, and it is a source of grave instability in the region. The actions of the United States were an attempt to alleviate that threat.
Anita Anand also saying that she spoke with the Iranian Foreign Affairs Minister before the attack on Saturday.
I emphasized the importance of the safety and security of Canadian citizens in the region. I also emphasized the importance of de-escalation.
Anand's office didn't specify who else the minister spoke with on Sunday, including if she spoke with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, with her team only saying they're in constant communication. The attack on Iran is overshadowing this trip to Europe, where Carney's set to sign an agreement with the European Union to allow Canadian defense companies to participate in European projects. And then there's the NATO summit in the Netherlands. The U.S. wants countries to spend 5% of GDP on defense, up from 2%, a target Canada will only hit this year. Canadian officials say they're still negotiating if they'll sign on to the 5% pledge, Jeff, but if they do, it will cost tens of billions of dollars more annually.
Mackenzie Gray in Brussels. Thanks, Mac. Dangerously hot. Coming up, an early summer heat wave scorches central Canada. We'll tell you how long it could last. Extreme heat warnings are now in place for southern and eastern Ontario as well as western Quebec. Temperatures there are expected to peak in the mid-30s in both provinces, with humidity making some parts feel well above 40 degrees. Lexi Benedict reports on how people are coping and when to expect relief.
Summer in Toronto is off to a sizzling start.
It's like a jungle out there. I mean, the heat, the humidity.
Environment Canada says temperatures are expected to surpass the 30s, with humidex values hitting the 40s.
We saw at noon, Toronto had the warmest temperature in Canada. It was up to, 32 degrees.
And while many may flock to the beaches and great outdoors to soak in all the sun.
It's so hot outside today, so we came out to Sugar Beach. I'm here visiting from Vancouver for the weekend.
Were you expecting it to be this hot?
No, it's so crazy.
Oh my gosh, it's so hot and humid.
Officials are warning that these conditions are dangerously hot.
You go out in that sun, and you can add another 6, 7, 8 degrees to the stress on the body. And that's why it's a real health risk for everybody.
Toronto residents trying to make it through the first heat wave of the year.
It's too hot. I did not expect this hot, but it was too hot.
It's almost too hot to hang out outside and play any sports. It's ridiculous.
too hot to handle for some, but not all.
Me, actually, everybody afraid hot. It's cold. It's no, as you see, I no get any tent, probably.
A long time we didn't get this vibe and this summer vibe, so we're very happy to be here.
Temperatures only expected to rise. Officials say Monday could be record-breaking.
And if it goes to 36, well, that would be the warmest in 10 years. So it really is significant.
And relief from this extreme heat isn't expected anytime soon, with these temperatures expected to last over the next few days. So residents, especially here in the city, are being encouraged to stay cool and hydrated as much as possible. Lexi Benedict, Global News, Toronto.
Signing up to serve still ahead. The military is reporting a spike in recruitment, but still struggling with retention. Prime Minister Mark Carney is vowing to rebuild Canada's military, but that won't be possible without adding personnel. Canada's armed forces are facing a significant shortage. They need about 13,000 more members. The military has made record progress attracting new recruits this year, but as Taria Isri reports, it's also struggling with retention.
At a time of renewed focus on Canadian sovereignty, there's renewed interest in the Canadian Armed Forces.
We're hitting record highs of Canadians wanting to join the military.
Go up the hill right to the crest.
Numbers obtained by Global News show recruitment hit its highest level in a decade. More than 6,700 people enrolled in the regular forces between April 2024 and March 2025, surpassing the military's goal of nearly 6,500. The military says it's too early to tie the jump to U.S. President Donald Trump's 51st state rhetoric or trade war. The armed forces have widened eligibility and launched a new application portal.
Many of the measures that we put in place were looking like they were bearing fruit, understanding there's not one silver bullet.
But as more people walk through the door, current members keep walking out.
The reason why retention has not been improving is because the military has been putting all of its eggs in the recruitment basket.
The retention crisis actually worsened. More than 5,000 people left the regular forces this fiscal year, compared to 4,256 the previous year. The Department of Defense says the fluctuation is normal and on par with the country's allies. Last winter, Canada's top soldier put it bluntly.
There's no point recruiting if you're not retaining.
Long-standing grievances include gaps in training, a lack of affordable housing, and compensation.
Now is the time to act with urgency.
It's not clear when military members will get that raise. Defense analysts say if Carney wants to make good on his pledge to rebuild the military and reach 2030 personnel targets, he can't afford to lose any more members already there. Jeff?
Taria Isri in Montreal. Thanks, Taria. Former Canadian Cabinet Minister John McCallum has died. McCallum was first elected 25 years ago in the Toronto area riding of Markham. He went on to serve as a cabinet minister for 3 different Liberal prime ministers. His portfolios included national defence, veterans affairs, as well as immigration, refugees and citizenship. Before entering politics, McCallum was Dean of Arts at McGill University at a time when his future boss, Justin Trudeau, was a student there. Trudeau said today that McCallum helped him and the country navigate some of its most challenging times. He passed away peacefully on Saturday, surrounded by family. McCallum was 75.
So we lived there for
Mixed emotions up next. Iranian Canadians react to the U.S. strikes on their homeland. Why some believe it could spell the end of the authoritarian regime. Welcome back. The U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran have left members of the Iranian diaspora here in Canada with mixed emotions, worried for their loved ones still in Iran, but also hoping these strikes on its nuclear facilities might finally spell an end to the authoritarian regime that's ruled the country for decades. Heidi Petracek has their story.
Islamic Republic does not show mercy to its own people.
As far as Ziba Meshkuri is concerned, the American strikes in Iran weren't aimed at her native country, but at the authoritarian regime that rules it.
People of Iran They've been fighting for 45 years to get their freedom. And what Islamic Republic brought to their table today is not what we wanted. We never want war.
Mashkuri left Iran at 18 years old.
I grew up in war, and I've seen the devastation that it brings to people.
Fleeing to the UK, then coming to Canada 5 years ago.
The world would be a much better place without Islamic Republic.
A sentiment shared among other Iranians in Canada.
People, unfortunately, on the streets of Tehran, they have no power. They are facing with a government that has guns and that has force.
That government says Atifa Tabesh has kept her uncle a political prisoner in Tehran after he was arrested at a protest. She says while Canadians may feel the threat of the regime is far away,
they're here in Canada. They live here. So all I want from government of Canada, if we know them here in Canada, deport them back.
The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is listed as a terrorist entity by Ottawa, and Iranian threat-related activities towards Canada are recognized by CSIS.
Transnational repression carried out by Iran has always been a threat, but I think that threat is now elevated, and I think the Iranian regime at the moment is capable of doing anything just to stay in power.
With the U.S. inserted into this conflict, the question is whether regime change is now possible.
But that sort of diplomatic apparatus that the United States has always had is gone in many ways. And so there isn't really a toolkit diplomatically.
Iran has been invaded for 45 years.
Her hope that this might mark the beginning of the end of that rule. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Valley, Nova Scotia.
And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Edmonton, Archerville, Saskatchewan, and a model schooner in Markham, Ontario. Thanks for watching. Donna will be back tomorrow. Have a great night.